Learning data structure and algorithms is supposedly one of the most important pieces to becoming a software engineer, or so I am told by more successful people than me on the internet. I am a computer science student in transition between 2 semesters, and during my gap semester I am spending my time teaching myself data structures and algorithms. If you want to learn more about my college experience, then you can check out my last YouTube video, but this video is going to be all about the structure and methodology of learning that I have developed. An important disclaimer here, I do not have any fancy internship, I don't have a fancy job, I didn't drop out because I had $1 billion idea, I just dropped out because I wanted to spend a few months teaching myself things and seeing where I could go on my own. I fully intend on going back to college. I think there's some virtue in the college experience, and for me it's not going to be particularly expensive, so I am going to college. Damn it, I said I was going to spare you the details. Anyways, before we get into my strategy to learn data structure and algorithms, my name is Bianchi, and if you guys could please leave a comment down below, what are your favorite courses or textbooks or strategies for learning? I love learning how to learn, and I love engaging with you guys in the comments, so that would be greatly appreciated, and be sure to like and subscribe while you're down there. The first step that I have to learning a new data structure and its accompanying algorithms is reading a textbook. Recently that has been Data Structure and Algorithms in Python, and I've been reading it on an old tablet that I found in a drawer when I started this process. I use my accompanying Rocketbook, which is really just a portfolio of pieces of plastic that you use erasable ink on, and then there's an associated app that scans everything to a PDF. It's really no fancy special technology, but I really appreciate the way that the product is designed, and it's definitely my favorite way of taking notes, so that's what I do. As I read, I'm highlighting, underlining, and taking notes on anything that I find important, and it's pretty regular that I'll reread a page or take a few minutes to understand just a handful of lines of code. I really want to make sure that I'm understanding things the first time that I read them, so I'll spend a few minutes on a page or a snippet of code, and I'll reread something multiple times. Normally I'll skim something, then I'll read it again in a more in-depth way, and then I'll go back and I'll ask myself the question, what words did I skip because I didn't understand what they meant, and my brain just automatically skipped them because it figured it could put the pieces together. And normally our brain is pretty good at using context clues to come up with the definition of a word, but if I notice that after a couple of read-throughs I can't quite figure out exactly what a word means, then I gotta figure that out. And more often than not, that I don't know what that means because it's an important vocabulary word that I either missed or I didn't have the context for. By the time I'm done reading the textbook, I want to understand every word of every sentence and every line of code. I chose the textbook, Data Structure and Algorithms in Python, because it's a Python textbook, so I didn't have to learn a new programming language just to understand this textbook, and it's in the language that I will likely be taking my coding interviews in. It's kind of the path of least resistance to doing well on programming interviews, so I didn't really see the point of complicating things, especially when I'm going to have to take a Data Structure and Algorithms class that goes more in depth with more technical mathematical proofs in my university. So why go through that twice? I'm really just trying to pick up the practical knowledge here, and that's what this textbook provides. A couple important notes about reading the textbook. I obviously don't highlight or underline everything because then you're really highlighting nothing at all. And I try and recall things that I just read. The idea being that if the goal is to remember things for weeks or months, then you're gonna have to be able to remember it 3 minutes after you read it. If you don't, then you didn't digest it properly the first time around. This also stops you from being a lazy reader because personally, so many times it's been like, oh, I got through 3 pages really fast, and then I'll scroll up a little bit, and I'll be like, oh, well, I got through 3 pages fast because I just skimmed it, and I have absolutely no idea what this is talking about. My brain just went into autopilot. You really got to avoid that. It makes reading take a lot longer, but it also makes you learn a lot more, and isn't that really what the goal is? As soon as I'm done reading, the first thing that I do is watch a lecture from MIT. I've been really enjoying their content. The professors are great. The content is great. There's tons of free associated coursework on their MIT open courseware. And honestly, I love the lectures because I get to watch them at 2x speed, which is a much better experience than 1x speed, where you kind of get that bored in class feeling. But at 2x speed, it keeps me engaged. I can still understand and digest everything that I'm learning, and I'm still taking some quick notes. notes. The videos are good because it triggers a different part of your brain and helps you visualize things. They go a little bit more into the theoretical side, and I find that it works a lot better in a textbook trying to understand the diagrams that they have for how an algorithm works. I don't know, my brain doesn't really fit too well with that, but the video, when it's step by step and you get to look at things, okay, one frame, it's this step, and then the next frame, it's a different step, and it's not all jumbled together, it works a lot better. So I think it's important to kind of hit things from different mediums. You might notice that up until now, this basically reflects what a normal classroom would be like. You read a textbook and then you go to class and listen to a lecture. And for me, where I'm gonna kind of diverge a little bit here is my use of Anki, which is a spaced repetition software. Spaced repetition is basically a fancy way to use flashcards where you review the flashcards and you tell Anki, the software, how difficult that flashcard was to you. Depending on that input, Anki will remind you in different periods of time when you should review that flashcard. So if something was really easy, it'll tell you to review it in a week, and if something was really hard, then it might only wait a day or 2 days or 10 minutes to remind you to review that card. The idea being that you're going to be reviewing these things just at the moment that you were about to forget them. That active recall from the deepest parts of your brain really strengthens the memory and the knowledge of that thing. So by using Anki, we get to minimize the amount of time that we spend studying and maximizing the amount that we remember. Once I'm done putting my flashcards together, which in itself is a form of studying and helps me learn things, and the strategy that I normally use, just so that you know, is I go through my notes, I go through the lectures notes, which are actually provided by MIT, and normally what I do is I just go through the textbook one more time, a lot faster this time, and I take key vocabulary words, things that I think are important, and I actually put code snippets into the flashcards so that when I am presented with a term, if I can't mentally reconstruct and recode the thing that's on the back side of the flashcard, then I didn't do it properly. So it really forces me to have a deep understanding of not only the theory, but also the implementation, so that I could do it quick in the case of a software interview. And the final and arguably most important part of this process is actually implementing the things that we are learning. So that can be using the textbook's problem set, that can be using MIT's problem set, it can be going on your own and doing Leetcode problems, or trying to implement some sort of project, really anything. I just want to make sure that for each concept that I learn, within a couple of days of learning it, I am implementing it in code in a project and learning that way. Project-based learning is easily the best way to learn, and while I think it's the best way to learn practical skills and tools and all of that, there is something to be said for this more theoretical stuff where you kind of got to understand it the first time in a more traditional style. It has been said that there are 2 stages to getting a job at a top company. There is getting an interview and passing the interview, and in each of those categories, for getting the interview, there is building awesome projects and getting your resume seen by recruiters, and for passing the interview, there is learning data structures and algorithms and practicing data structure and algorithms. So I guess that's kind of the relatively simple breakdown for getting into one of these companies. It's said by a lot of people, software engineers at these top companies, like it's not that special to get there. You don't have to be a super genius, which I don't know, man. We'll see. I guess I consider myself like a smart person. I definitely have a reputation of being on the more intelligent end of the spectrum, but I by no means consider myself a super genius. So we'll see how this whole journey pans out, but I'm looking forward to it. If you guys grabbed any value from this video, if you guys want to implement any of this into your own learning method. Oh, there's one more thing that I forgot to mention. The productivity kind of hack that I use to actually get stuff done. I basically use a version of Pomodoro, or I take the idea of Pomodoro, which is focus for 25 minutes or more and then take a break. The part that I struggle most with is it's the breaks. It's coming back from the break. So I'll take a break and I'll be like, oh, that break was a little bit too long, a little bit longer than it had to be. Or I'll just completely forget to take breaks, and then I'll get really deep and I'll get really caught up in my own head, and after I take a break and I come back, I'll realize, oh my god, it was a stupid solution to a stupid problem, and if I had just taken a break, I would have realized that. So it's definitely not easy to be really disciplined with your time management, but I generally utilize a 25-minute on, 5-minute off timer, or I'll do a longer kind of 40 to 50 minutes on, 20-ish minutes off. But that's going to be it for this video. If you guys could please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. All of it helps out the channel a lot. And if you guys want to see my journey, then be sure to follow along. If you want to hear my college story, then click the end card that's about to pop up on the screen. And that's it for this video. Peace.